What is up, Packer fans? Happy Saturday. Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Hope your holiday weekend is treating you well. Today, we are going to be going over the key players, the X factors, the players that will morph this Packer season into either what it has the potential to be or potentially hold it back from what it could become. And this is a very significant group of players. We're going to go over 10 today that I do believe will legitimately swing this season one way or the other. Now, one just quick precursor to this is that you could put the whole rookie class on this list, right? How these rookies perform is going to go a long way into whether or not this defense is ready to take a step in 2024. So I am going to put two rookies on this list, but I don't want to just go through the entire rookie class because, of course, how they perform is going to be a large differentiating factor between this season. So we could put theoretically every rookie on here, but I do have two particularly in mind that I want to go over. But we're going to start with, I think, the most clear and obvious X factor for this upcoming season. A player that the Packers know is insanely important because they're doing everything in their power to make sure that he stays healthy this upcoming season, and that is the one and only Christian Watson. Now, the one thing with Watson is that Green Bay at least is blessed with a wide receiver room that if a Christian Watson does get hurt, they still have a Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, a Bo Melton, a Jaden Reed, a Malik Heath, and then even guys like Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, Josh Jacobs. They are not going to be like lacking for weapons like if it was Devonte Adams, where if Green Bay lost Devonte Adams at wide receiver, it was just such a very difficult thing to overcome. They have the depth. They have the playmakers. They have the players that can still make this offense go even without Christian Watson. But this offense at its peak will be at its peak in large part due to Christian Watson being healthy and playing at the level that he is capable of playing at. In his 2 years in Green Bay, despite it being injury riddled, despite him being a rookie and a second-year player, despite him being out almost all of training camp and missing a significant period of time his rookie season, despite him dropping a huge play against Minnesota in week 1 as a rookie, despite all of it, this is a player that in reduced playing time and oftentimes not playing at 100% has 14 touchdowns in 2 seasons. That is a huge chunk of playmaking in a very short period of time for a very young and, remember, sort of inexperienced player coming out of college. They were a run primary offense in college. They did not utilize Christian Watson as a big time, spam receiver that you're just going to him on every play. He still had some things that he needed to work on coming out of college and going to the NFL. So with all of those things in mind, 14 touchdowns in 2 seasons is pretty freaking impressive. In addition, this is a player that, on average, over his games that have been played so far, if you would average that out to a 17-game season, would have 51 catches, 764 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Now, that may not seem like a ton, but I want to almost look at this in a different way. Over his last 17 games, which just so happens to coincide with the game that he broke out against Dallas, if you start at that point, when he really started getting his footing, because remember, before that, it was a lot of just him being banged up, getting his feet underneath him, and didn't really have that impact up until that point. Over the last 17 games, 59 catches, 945 yards, 13 total touchdowns, and that also may not seem like, all right, well, we're not talking about a 100-catch receiver. We're not talking about... The beautiful thing about Christian Watson is twofold. I'm going to say threefold. One, we have yet to see peak Christian Watson. If he was actually healthy for a full 17-game season and at his best, those numbers are going to be obliterated in a full 17-game healthy season by Christian Watson. Number two is that he doesn't have to be the guy. He doesn't have to be the guy that you are spamming with 150 targets, to get his numbers. This is an offense that's going to have to spread the ball around. There's not going to be a true number one. Romeo Doubs needs the ball. Wicks needs the ball. Reed needs the ball. Watson needs the ball. Musgrave, Kraft, Josh Jacobs, Marshon Lloyd, A.J. Dillon, even guys like Ben Sims, Malik Heath, Bo Melton. These are all mouths that you have to feed within this offense. Yes, if you had somebody like Devonte Adams, you're still going to look his way first every time, But the beauty of this offense is that you can go in any direction at any moment. And the beauty of Watson is that in as few as 59 catches, he can still basically put up 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns. That is a huge weapon to have in your offense, a guy that can take the ball and bring it to the house at any given moment. And furthermore, the impact of Christian Watson isn't dictated just by the numbers that he puts up on the box score. His ability to have gravity and draw safeties and defenders down the field opens everything up for your Romeo Doubs, your Dontavian Wicks, your Jaden Reed, your Luke Musgrave, your Tucker Kraft, your Josh Jacobs. Those guys are going to be benefited by Christian Watson being on the field and having guys have to run with him down the field because of his game-breaking speed. So you love the fact that he doesn't need 100 catches to be that impactful. And we also have to understand that even within those 17 games that he caught 59 passes, that he had 945 yards and 13 total touchdowns, he was not 100% Christian Watson during that time frame. The difference here between a season that's once again injury riddled by Christian Watson, or he doesn't play up to his expectations, or we see more drops, or peak of his powers, 100% healthy, ready to go, and capable of playing the entirety of the season, the difference there is massive. And as I said at the beginning here, I still think this offense has enough playmaking and weapons to survive with an injured Christian Watson, but man, would it be nice if they didn't have to. Man, would it be nice if Christian Watson just did stay healthy and provided that playmaking whenever Green Bay needed it. And Matt LaFleur's superpower is utilizing all of these players, getting them in mismatches, and finding ways to put them in positions to succeed. And you want a guy like Christian Watson as a playmaker in that type of offense, where again, he doesn't have to be the focal point where Jordan Love's feeling like he has to look at Christian Watson every single play, or Watson's going to be upset, or they're not going to be, utilizing him the way that they should. He is just another very important cog in a very powerful offense, and this offense will reach the peak of its powers and does have all of that breakout top 3, top 5, top 1 offense potential if all these guys are healthy and playing up to that level. But that starts with Christian Watson, and he really needs to stay healthy and provide that level of playmaking for this Packers offense, who is still young, is still inexperienced, but is growing every day, and he has the ability to take that offense to its next level. Number 2 is almost the identical conversation, but on the opposite side of the ball, and maybe a little bit less because we haven't seen this player quite at the peak of his powers ever, and that's Eric Stokes. We've talked about on numerous episodes lately the trajectory here for Eric Stokes. A player who, as a rookie, was thrust into action, basically had to serve as the de facto number 1 corner with Jair Alexander going down, and performed admirably. Went up against the Justin Jeffersons and the Jamar Chases and some really talented wide receivers that season. And everyone's thinking, oh my goodness, if Jair comes back as number 1 and now Eric Stokes can just be number 2 and he doesn't have to do all the heavy lifting as a number 1 corner, imagine what he's going to be able to do in year 2. And then he did not perform that way in year 2. He took a major step back, then was injured the remainder of 2022, and then was injured almost the entirety of 2023. And now we're left wondering, what is Eric Stokes? Can he be a starter? Can he be a good football player? Is he going to have a role on this team? The answer, seemingly, at least to begin with, per the one OTA practice that we had open to the media, was they're expecting him to. He was the starting corner opposite Jair Alexander. Carrington Valentine was down at the other end of the field. Now, we're not putting anything set in stone at this point. I have a strong feeling that will remain a competition, but Eric Stokes, day one, gets that opportunity to be that guy. And I believe he will be given every opportunity to earn that job, even if it is in a competition with Carrington Valentine. But what he is this season changes the defense drastically. If he is even rookie level Eric Stokes, good number 2 corner, that is a huge add to this team. And you have to think in some capacity that Green Bay believes that either Carrington Valentine or Eric Stokes can be a starting caliber corner, because they did not attack it in free agency. They did not attack it in the draft. They get Kalen King in the 7th round, and that's it. They bring in Gemmin Green as a random street free agent type player. That's not exactly putting a ton of resources into the position. And you might think they don't listen. Brian Gutekunst put resources into everything he thought was a weakness. They needed offensive line depth. He grabs Andre Dillard, drafts Jordan Morgan, Jacob Monk, Travis Glover. He puts 4 new pieces into that offensive line and gives a big undrafted free agent contract to Donovan Jennings. Running back was clearly going to be something that they needed to address. He addresses it by bringing back A.J. Dillon, signing Josh Jacobs, and drafting Marshon Lloyd in the 3rd round. Safety, gaping hole, signs Xavier McKinney, then drafts 3 guys, including Javon Bullard in the 2nd round, Evan Williams trading up 4 in the 4th, and then grabbing Katano Ladapo at the end of the 5th. Inside linebacker, huge need. They go out and they get Edgerrin Cooper and Tyron Hopper, both in the top 100, including Edgerrin Cooper, in the top 45 of the draft. They also bring back an Eric Wilson and a Christian Welch. They put a bunch of resources into all of those other positions. One of them that they did not was corner, other than bringing back Keesan Nixon. They basically let it ride. They said, we're good. And they brought back Quay Walker as well, but they're basically banking on the players that they already had from a season ago. Jair, Valentine, Nixon, and Eric Stokes. The only other new guy is Kalen King of any real significance. So they're counting on these guys. But Eric Stokes, again, if he can be rookie level Eric Stokes, we're not asking for a step up. We're not asking for legitimate number 1 caliber corner Eric Stokes. We're just asking, can he play like he did as a rookie? Because if he can, that's a starting caliber corner. And that is a big time addition to this team, something they have not had over the course of the last 2 seasons from Eric Stokes. But if he's the guy from the last 2 seasons, and I'm just talking about when he played, that's a huge step down and probably somebody that you cannot trust as a starter. Or if he has all the injury issues again, clearly that will take him out of the conversation and the question. So the swing here from a legitimately really good corner to somebody that you cannot count on at all is a pretty big difference for Jeff Hafley's defense. Now, again, they do have some depth here in Carrington Valentine and Quay Walker who could step up, but you're going to need all of those guys through the course of the season. There's going to be injuries. You're hoping it's not to Eric Stokes, and you're hoping that he can be the guy as a true starting corner in 2024, but huge X factor there. Number 3 is one of the rookies I was talking about. It may not be the one that you're expecting, but it's Marshon Lloyd. And the reason why I consider him an X factor here is twofold. Number 1, I believe the difference in what we could get from Marshon Lloyd is pretty drastic. And I've talked about this in his scouting profile, that he has basically 2 catastrophic issues that could theoretically keep him off the field. If he continues to fumble and if he cannot pass protect, that will not get him playing time. But here's the thing. Green Bay needs his playmaking ability on the field. I have said this on I don't know how many occasions. The drop off, especially last year, from Aaron Jones on the field to Aaron Jones not on the field was massive. You just lacked any real playmaking ability at the running back position. You did not get those big chunk plays in the running game. You struggled to put together a competent running game when he was out. Part of that, by the way, was not on A.J. Dillon. Part of that was due to the offensive line and not creating those opportunities for Dillon. But even when Dillon did have opportunities, he wasn't creating explosive plays out of it. This is a playmaking league. You have to have playmakers at your playmaking positions. That should go without saying, but for Green Bay, for stretches of time, it didn't. They had too many players on the roster as a whole. Your Josiah DeGuaras, your Alan Lazards, your A.J. Dillons, your Geronimo Allisons, we can go on and on. Too many guys on the field. Mercedes Lewis. Well, I love Mercedes Lewis. I love Alan Lazard. I love a lot of those guys. They're good football players, but they aren't playmakers. They're not guys that are going to get the ball in their hands and take it the distance at any given moment. Not enough, at least. And we've seen enough of that out of A.J. Dillon where, yes, you can find a serviceable role in the NFL for a good running back like A.J. Dillon, but he's not a playmaker. And they need playmaking on the field at that running back position. When Josh Jacobs is out, whether it's just to him resting or whether it's due to injury, they have to have somebody on the field that has that playmaking ability. And that's where Marshon Lloyd comes in. They're expecting him to be that. They need him to be that. So he's got to get the fumbling issues under control. He's got to be able to pass protect. And if so, he's going to see the field a ton. But the difference here, again, between being able to have that playmaker on the field, like a Marshon Lloyd when Jacobs is out, versus not having that on the field, or him having issues where he can't pass protect and he's fumbling the ball, is a pretty significant difference for this offense. And that's why he is number 3 on my list of X factors for this upcoming season. Number 4 is my other rookie, may also not be the one that you're thinking about, but it is Jordan Morgan. Yes, he's the first round pick, but I think a lot of people maybe would say Adrian Cooper or Javon Bullard. Like I said, we could go through a lot of these rookies. They're all going to be X factors in some capacity. But for me, this offensive line, and I said it all offseason, if I'll say it this way, Green Bay's at the point now where if you protect Jordan Love, you're going to have a top offense in this league. We know they have the playmakers at wide receiver. They have the playmakers at tight end. They have the playmakers at running back. They have every ingredient that they need to be a supercharged, high-powered offense if this offensive line does their job. They've got to create holes for Jacobs and Lloyd and Dillon. They've got to be able to protect Jordan Love. The last thing that you want going into this season is Jordan Love dropping his eyes and not being able to get the ball downfield or not being able to keep his eyes downfield because he's constantly worried about somebody breaking protection at any given moment. And sometimes, a lot of times, it just takes one player. And we've seen Alex Light, Byron Bell. We've seen a variety of different players be that guy, that Jason Spriggs, where just one of them on the line can ruin it for everyone else. You don't want that. And we know that Green Bay is going to have some injuries along the offensive line through the course of the season. Whoever their starting five ends up being, I doubt it's going to just be that five for 17 games plus playoffs. It just usually doesn't work that way. You're usually going to need 7, 8, maybe even 9 guys to navigate the course of a season. And hopefully you've got enough guys that can go in where you don't have to change your game plan, where Jordan Love doesn't have to drop his eyes, where, Josh Jacobs isn't immediately tackled in the backfield like he was with the Raiders a season ago. So Jordan Morgan being that either starter or next guy up is going to be massively important. Again, I've talked about we can feel semi-comfortable if it's Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, and Zach Tom. We can feel comfortable because we saw that offensive line perform well enough for a very good offense at the end of last season. But you want to be able to take a jump and get better. And you want to have depth where if any of those guys are out for any significant period of time, you have the players who can step in. And again, that's where Jordan Morgan comes in because he's going to have every opportunity to become a starter. And even if not, he's going to be probably the next guy up along that offensive line. They're going to need him to be a quality caliber starter right away. They need that along this offensive line. Jordan Love needs that. And there's a really good chance he's just the starter at the blind side for your new franchise quarterback who's going to be making a boat ton of money. You need that blind side protected. So Jordan Morgan for me is a massive X factor. If he plays up to what Green Bay expects him to be as a first round pick, man, what a huge pick that is for Green Bay in round 1. Somebody who can already come in and protect Jordan Love's blind side and be part of the long-term solution along the offensive line. Hopefully open up holes for Josh Jacobs and these running backs, and of course protecting Jordan Love. That is massive. If we see some of the flaws that Morgan had in college and just holding up in pass pro and, being consistent as a overall blocker, well, then it's going to be a lot more complicated when he's in there. And they're going to need him this season one way or the other. So that is another major swing one way or the other for Jordan Morgan and this offense as a whole. So Jordan Morgan, number 4 on my list. Number 5, LVN. We should not forget just how talented of a football player LVN is. This was the guy they took in the top 13 of last year's draft. This is the guy that was expected to be sort of the poster child for the 2023 draft. But he almost gets lost in the shuffle when you've got Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, Carrington Valentine. We can go on and on. Carl Brooks. This was a very talented draft class a season ago. I don't even know if I said Dontavian Wicks. It is that good. It was a unbelievable draft class, and LVN almost gets lost in the shuffle, but this was their premium selection. And he had 22 pressures on 238 pass rush attempts. That's a 9.24 pass rush win rate. That's not bad. Preston Smith, for example, was at 10.6%. But in his final 130 pass rush snaps last season, as he got better as the season went along, he had 15 pressures, bringing that up to 11.5%. His pressure rate was pretty darn good, especially for a rookie. It was actually, I think, tops among rookie pass rushers, but if not, it was right up there. And he has a ton of untapped potential. He is only going to get better, but Green Bay needs him to get better. You don't want him just being a rotational edge rusher. You want him being somebody that takes a legitimate step and is wreaking havoc in defensive or in offensive backfields. is causing chaos for quarterbacks and running backs. He has that type of ability. He has that type of potential. The question here is he the next Clay Matthews? Or is he the next Rashawn Gary? Or is he the next Nick Perry? Or is he the next Jarrell Worthy type player, right? Or Dayton Jones? That's the stretcher. If you get Clay Matthews or even another Rashawn Gary, you're in a great spot. If you get Nick Perry, okay, you're always left wanting a little bit more, but he can certainly help. You get Dayton Jones, it's like, oh, what a waste of a pick that was. So that's what we need to see out of LVN. And that's why, again, he is such a massive X factor for this season. Big time pass rush potential, big time run stopping potential. How does he fit in a 4-3? I think better. I think he's going to fit better in this defense. I think he's going to feel more comfortable with his hand in the dirt. I think he's going to be a penetrating defensive lineman that does get into the backfield and does cause chaos. But if he can't, that's a pretty big miss and something that Green Bay will be lacking this upcoming season. So another big time swing player for Green Bay. He reaches the potential. This defense has a much better chance of reaching their potential. He's just kind of the same rotational edge rusher with a couple wins here or there. All right, you're more in Nick Perry territory. Not awful, but not good enough, and something you're always wanting a little bit more from. Same thing with number 6 on my list, Devonte Wyatt. I think we also forget this is a player who had 48 pressures on 370 pass rush snaps a season ago. That's a 13.0 pass rush win rate, or a pass rush winning percentage. Aaron Donald was at 14.6. Chris Jones was at 14.3, and those are two of the best of all time. Justin Madubuike, the Ravens defensive tackle who had a massive year a season ago, who just got a massive contract, was at 13.4%. I'll say it one more time. Devonte Wyatt was at 13.0. He won a lot. He just did not finish a lot. That's the missing link. He has to be able to finish some of those plays. There are a numerous amount of plays where he wins immediately and just can't get the quarterback or the running back. And it's just like, it's maddening. I do think he'll finish better. I also think he'll be much better set up in this gap penetrating attacking defense that Jeff Hafley is setting up. Devonte Wyatt is the poster child for somebody who should come in and succeed in this system. It's like this system was made for Devonte Wyatt. It's why I've been saying, give me all of your Devonte Wyatt stock. I will purchase all of it. I think he is set for a massive breakout season, in part because I don't think he quite gets the credit for how disruptive he was this past season. And again, now he's going into a situation where he would be, or should be, even more disruptive. But he has to find a way to finish those plays. If he does, look out. We are talking about a Pro Bowl caliber player. If he doesn't, we're talking about a rotational defensive tackle who never lives up to his potential. That's a pretty big X factor. Pro Bowler versus swing player that can rotate in. I want that Pro Bowler. I think we can get that Pro Bowler. He's that talented, but it's now up to Devonte Wyatt. If he wants that 5th-year option, he needs to play to that level this upcoming season. And like I said, he's now going to a defense that makes so much more sense for his upside and capabilities. Next up, number 7, Quay Walker. I think this is a player that a lot of people believe is just a good player already. Myself and my grades and PFF and their grades would sort of disagree with that. PFF in the last 2 seasons gives Quay Walker grades of 52.0 and 58.5. Remember, 60 is average. Now, 58.5, not far from it, but he's still below average per their scale. For me, I had him at a negative 3.4 grade as a rookie and negative 2.15 as a second-year player a season ago. I do believe Quay has all the potential in the world as a really good inside linebacker. We've seen a lot of inside linebackers take off in year 3. Those first 2 years, there's a lot to learn. The middle of a defense is a nightmare to play. You've got everything going on, things coming at you from a million different directions, and offensive coordinators and offenses specifically trying to target you to make you look stupid. They're trying to get you with every fake, end around, reverse, fake handoff, play action. Everything you can possibly imagine is designed to screw with that linebacker's head. I do think there's a good chance that he takes a much bigger step in year 3, but we need to see that. We have not seen really good Quay Walker. There's times where we've seen good Quay Walker, but it hasn't been consistent enough. This needs to be the year where he becomes that number 1 guy. Green Bay's putting pressure on him. They drafted 2 players in the top 100. Now, partially because they need bodies there, partially because they certainly need a number 2 starter, but partially because Quay hasn't quite lived up to expectations yet. This is another player whose 5th-year option is very much in question. Whether they pick it up or not will largely be dependent upon what he does as an off-ball linebacker in Jeff Hafley's defense this year. All of the talent is there, but now he needs to put it together. And again, the difference between a league average-ish or slightly below average linebacker and what we think he can become is a massive difference. So it's up to Quay to put in that time to be ready for this new defense and to show what he's truly capable of as a former first-round draft pick and a highly talented linebacker if he can put everything together. Number 8, Carrington Valentine. A lot of the things that we talked about with Eric Stokes of how Green Bay did not address the corner position, it's clear that they feel confident about the corners that are already on the roster, and that has a lot to do with Carrington Valentine. I still believe that Valentine wins the corner spot opposite Jair. Right now it seems to be Stokes, but we'll have to see how this progresses. I don't really care which one it is, as long as one of them or hopefully both of them step up and play well. We heard glowing comments from both Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur about not only how Valentine handled himself a season ago, but what they expect out of him this upcoming year. That's the key. That's the hope. But last year, PFF had a 57.5 grade. I had a negative 1.45, slightly below average. Now, for a corner rookie 7th round pick, that's not bad. You're getting a good ROI for that sort of investment at that point in the draft. But now the expectations are, can he be a good starting corner? And he still has a step to take if he wants to be that. He clearly put in the time in the weight room in the offseason. He looks fantastic. He still looks spry, but he looks much more muscular and looks like he added lean muscle to his frame, which is exactly what you want to see. So he is taking this very seriously, but Green Bay is hoping for a jump from Carrington Valentine, and they need it, which is, again, why he is number 8 on my list of X factors. Number 9 probably doesn't need much discussion. Anders Carlson. Let's be real and let's not kid ourselves. Yes, there are 3 kickers on the roster. It would still be an upset to some extent if Anders is not the kicker going into the year. Now, I'm not saying he should be. I'm not saying you should feel good about that. I'm not saying that this shouldn't be an open competition. I think it is an open competition. I think Anders will feel the challenge here, but the leader in the clubhouse still to be the kicker in 2024 is Anders Carlson. And that should be everyone's hope still, that he just goes out and kicks well so he can be that future kicker and take that progression the way that Mason Crosby did, even though he had some struggles early in his career. That's the hope. But right now, I don't know how anyone can feel great about that or good about that or even okay about that. This is a kicker who struggled mightily a season ago, rookie or not. Came up in a big moment against San Francisco and could not make a major kick that they needed. We've seen this before. It needs to be better. And Anders is a massive X factor for this season because if he does go out and kicks well, not only did Green Bay find their future kicker, but they solved a massive problem from a season ago. And that will improve. No matter how good you think Green Bay is going to be this year, I still expect them to be in a ton of close games. And if they are, those games come down to extra points, field goals, and every point that you can have. Green Bay cannot suffer from missed points taken off the board because their kicker isn't good enough. They have to have consistency there. They have to be able to trust him in big spots. And right now, I don't think anyone does. So this is a huge offseason for Anders Carlson, and he has to take a step and is, again, why just a massive X factor on this list. And number 10, last but not least, is Keesan Nixon. This one also for 2 reasons. One, he's probably just going to be the starting slot, and he's going to get a lot of playing time. He played more slot snaps than any corner in the NFL a season ago. I still expect that to be at least similarly the case, even if he does maybe rotate a little bit with some players here and there. I think we're going to see a ton of Keesan Nixon in the slot. I thought he got better as last season went along. I think he needs to continue to get better and take that next step. But the talent is still there, and Green Bay clearly thought enough of him to give him a pretty significant contract in the offseason. But number 2 is not just what he can bring as a corner. These new kick return rules are set up for Keesan Nixon to ball out and be a big-time kick returner and get Green Bay great field position. You want to give this offense that's already supercharged, potentially supercharged, a boost, set them up with great field position every time. Or you know what? Don't even put it in their hands and just take the kick to the house. Keesan Nixon has that ability. So not only on the defensive side where he's going to play a major role, but in these new this new era of new kick return rules, Keesan Nixon should thrive and he should be a big time playmaker on teams. So another reason why Keesan Nixon is an X factor on this list. That is my 10. Christian Watson, Eric Stokes, Marshon Lloyd, Jordan Morgan, LVN, Devonte Wyatt, Quay Walker, Carrington Valentine, Anders Carlson, and Keesan Nixon. I believe those 10 players will swing the trajectory of the season in a fairly significant way and could very much be the difference between if Green Bay is contending and competing for a Super Bowl and maybe even hoisting a trophy, or if they do not reach those expectations and they end up taking a step back in 2024 after a very impressive 2023. That's going to do it for me today. Let me know in the comments if there's anyone that you would add or remove from that list. Would love to hear from you guys. Shout out to our Hall of Fame and All-Pro members, Most Hated Minnesotan, PJ Wynn, John Wild, Shea Bradad, Brandon Paletta, Jennifer Wright, Boom Handle, Donald Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, David McCluskey, Donald Decker, Bremen, David Prendergast, Dan Miller, Alex Wong, Arnaldo Espinoza, and Michael Schipper. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy your weekend. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.